What's up, First Thing First listeners? It's your boy Shay Sharp, co-host of FS1's Undisputed. I wanted to tell you about my new podcast, Club Shay Shay, where we always do something before two something. Each week, I sit down with a guest for a drink and conversation, and as host and proprietor of Club Shay Shay, I've welcomed in esteemed guests such as Snoop Dogg, Floyd Money Mayweather, LeVar Ball, Isaiah Thomas, just to mention a few. Whether I'm talking to an athlete, a musician, an actor, or a lifelong friend, Club Shay Shay is a place where people share inspiring and motivational stories about their journeys to prominence. The new episode drops every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Club Shay Shay now and make sure you never miss a new episode. Now, back to First Things First.
First things first, the Beard made an MVP statement last night in arguably his best night as a Net. Is Aaron Rodgers about to get the piece he needs to get them back to the Super Bowl? And will Bill Belichick's spending spree spell success this season? So many S's. Good Thursday morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. Jenna Wolfe, Nick Wright, Brandon Marshall, Kevin Wildes. I think we look good today. I said it before the show. We all laughed. Nick, you're a big spender, probably the biggest on the panel. I don't even think you would spend this much.
I wouldn't, but I'm the biggest on the panel. Have you not seen Brandon Marshall's Instagram? He's got a photographer on a retainer. Give me a break. I'm the biggest.
Three.
That is a good point.
Three photographers.
It's true.
Sorry.
All right, we'll get to all of Brandon's photography, but this morning, well, we got to start with Russell Wilson. We learned yesterday what the Bears offered Seattle for Russ. And guys, it was quite a list. 3 first-round picks, 1 third-round pick, 2 starters, and a Chicago Bears sweatshirt. That is like the Godfather offer it's probably going to take to get one of these superstar quarterbacks that's available. Remember, Seattle came back with a hard no, saying Russ isn't available, quote, at this time. So let's start there. Brandon, you surprised the Bears didn't land Russ with this trade package?
Absolutely not, Jenna. Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks have finally realized they have one of the best quarterbacks the game has ever seen. He has more wins than anyone in NFL history through 9 years. Think about that. And they're finally realizing that. If they want to be considered Hall of Fame coaches, Hall of Fame general managers, then they need to protect their quarterback. The greats protect their quarterback. That's what it's coming down to. Free agency started, guys, and you haven't made one move. Now, a lot of that could be because they haven't figured out this situation. And guys, from what I'm hearing, is like, well, Seattle reached out to me. I want to go out there. It's really attractive, but Russ could be gone. So they may be even making the situation worse for them by keeping Russell Wilson and everybody else in limbo. This is going to be a sad day in Seattle sports history if they don't figure this out. We're talking about Ken Griffey Jr. leaving. We're talking about the Sonics leaving. When I played with Russ, and it was a short time, I was only there for, pretty much 10 months. And what I realized really quickly is he loves Seattle, and he also loves to win. He's obsessed with both. So they need to figure it out because this situation is getting worse by the minute. And one of the things that we're not talking about is in free agency. How it's not an attractive destination right now because we're wondering, why aren't guys going there? What's going on in free agency? Well, a lot of guys are just hesitant because Russell Wilson's situation isn't clear, Nick.
So before I give my take, I want to fully flesh out what you're saying here. Because on one hand, you have the Seahawks turning down 3 first-round picks and a couple of starters for Russ, seemingly recognizing his value. But on the other hand, you say they aren't doing the things they need to do to fully realize his future potential by protecting him. Now, they did trade for Gabe Jackson yesterday, which I think is a good move and they deserve some credit for. So what do you think is happening there behind the scenes? Like, they don't want to lose him, but they also don't want to empower him? Kind of expand on that, and then I'll give my take on the Bears trade offer.
No, it's just exactly that. It's them finally sitting at the table and having that conversation. All right, how do we work this out? Obviously, we know what Pete Carroll wants to do. Pete Carroll wants to do it the way he's always done it, run the ball and play really good defense. That's how they won a Super Bowl before. The league has changed. Russell Wilson has changed. Russell Wilson is obsessed with winning, but he's obsessed with winning with flair. He wants to be in contention with the greats. Patrick Mahomes, when we're talking about Patrick Mahomes, he wants to be right there. When we're talking about Aaron Rodgers, he wants to be right there. So right now, I think they're trying to figure that out. But if they don't get their act together soon, he could be on the move, Nick. It's still not over.
Well, and I do think that one of the noteworthy things in the Seattle, I think it was the Seattle Times, I apologize for not getting the newspaper name right, the Seattle newspaper article I read this morning that's notable to other GMs is that this offer at least piqued John Schneider's interest, but Pete Carroll, it was not enough for him. And to me, the reason it wasn't enough for Pete Carroll is because the Bears did not offer and cannot offer what must be included if you are going to trade away Russell Wilson, which is either a franchise quarterback or a pick to acquire a franchise quarterback. So I don't look at the Bears offer as some great offer for Seattle. What do you get? You get the 20th pick of this year's draft. You then get the Bears' next 2 first-round picks, which guess what? Will be in the 20s because they'll have Russell Wilson as their quarterback, so they're not going to be bad. And a couple defensive starters, that's nice, but none of that matters if you don't have the quarterback situation settled, which is why, Wilds, unless Russ is going to expand his list to include Brandon's beloved New York Jets or the Miami Dolphins, I just don't see where they're going to have enough value coming back. I think if you're trying to trade for Russ or Deshaun, you must be able to include a quarterback, a legitimate quarterback, not Andy Dalton or Nick Foles, a legitimate quarterback or a top 5 pick that you can use to acquire a future franchise quarterback. So I'm not surprised Seattle turned this deal down. It's why I said, Wilds, I don't think Chicago can ever come up with enough capital to make this work because they can't send a quarterback back.
Yeah, but the door doesn't seem shut on Russ to Chicago. And when I saw the offer, I was like, oh, I'm not surprised they turned this down. This doesn't seem wildly different than the Jamal Adams trade. All right, so 3 firsts, a third, and 2 players. All right, well, to get Jamal Adams, it was 2 firsts, a third, and 1 player. It's not a wildly wide gulf in that offer, right. And the player's value is wildly different. So I think they're going back to the table. Like, look, someone's put it out there publicly, and I don't think Seattle has a ton of pressure. But when the offer came out, the Bears GM was lambasted, calling for their job. So I think they go back and like, all right, let's dig through our draft capital, see what else we can offer. And no one, Nick, nobody has said this is dead. Not Ian Rappaport, not Schefter, not Glazer, not Brandon Marshall, not the Seahawks, who are like, we're not interested in trading Russ at this time. So I think this is just going to be the first of many offers we hear until we get closer and closer to draft day and the Bears up and up and up their offer.
Well, Wilds, I think you make a very interesting point. And Brandon, I want to bounce something off you because you joke about me being the resident GM on this show. If I were the Seahawks GM, I wouldn't trade Russ. But if I were, let's pretend I'm the Seahawks GM and I am open to trading Russ, okay? So pretend that.
Right.
I would tell Chicago, you need to find a way to make me this offer and include Tua Tagovailoa in it. Chicago needs to bring a third team involved to where they can also send them a quarterback. I've heard some people speculate Sam Darnold. I think Darnold is not going to get anyone excited. I think Tua might. But I think that if Chicago is going to actually be in the game here, a third team that can send Seattle a quarterback, because if you're Seattle, aren't you concerned that if the best pick you're getting this year is the 20th, and the team you're trading with is going to be employing Russell Wilson, you're never going to get a top 5 pick in this trade. You're never going to get that blue chip, no doubt draft pick in this trade. So how can you make it work? That would be my concern if I'm the Seattle GM.
that's your concern. My question to Seattle is, why do you need a Tua? Why do you need a top-flight quarterback? Think about what you're asking this guy to do. You're asking your quarterback to freaking hand the ball off on first, second, and third down if it's manageable. What is manageable? 3rd and 2, 1 to 3. We're going to run it again. That's what you're asking this quarterback to do, and then all of a sudden you say, let's take some shot plays. There's a lot of guys that can do that. We saw Baker Mayfield have success doing that. We see Kirk Cousins having success doing that. Like, what are you trying to accomplish if you're Seattle? Russell Wilson, what he's done and why it's worked is because when the game is on the line, going back to 2012 in Chicago, going to 2014 playing in Green Bay, and he has these drives where it's like they're magical. And now what Russ is saying is, I want to do more than just be magical in those moments. Yes, I know I'm the winningest quarterback in NFL history, but give me an opportunity to open up more. And when I do make a mistake, still believe in me because I'm your guy.
Well, if that's the case, Chicago should just give him Andy Dalton or Nick Foles. They got two quarterbacks that'd be happy to just hand the ball off, I'm sure, that would make.
They can plug them in,
You don't even have to get a third team. All right, so it seems like, at least for now, Russ is staying put. Plenty other quarterbacks found a new home this offseason. Which one will have the biggest impact? That story next. First things first. Hey, First Things First listeners, I wanted to tell you about our brand new Fox Sports app and website, foxsports.com, reimagined for the modern sports fan. Go ahead, download the new app right now. You don't even have to pause this episode. Every day on the new app and website, you'll see the top stories in sports, plus a rich world of written content, videos, social media, and analytics to give you a 360-degree view of the most important stories of the day. Streaming live TV has never been so easy or elegant. Every Fox Sports game, including all pregame and postgame shows, as well as the televised version of this show, just a click away. For the extra invested fan, we also go deep with real-time wagering lines, trending prop bets, win probability, and key player projections. So download the new Fox Sports app or visit www.foxsports.com. Drawing a blank, guys. Ryan Fitzpatrick found a new home in Washington. See if he can get the football team to the playoffs now in the NFC. He's done everything else for every other team, it feels like. But Brandon, the biggest winner so far in free agency has been blank.
Yeah, not a lot of transactions, but the biggest moves. Literally the biggest moves. We're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. When you have Patrick Mahomes, could potentially be the greatest quarterback ever if he keeps this up over the next 10 years. And then you have Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You know, you are in the moment. You're in the matrix right now. But that doesn't matter if you can't protect them. So what do? They cut everybody, and everybody's like, what is going on? And then Andy Reid and the management, they reload. They go get Joe Tooney, who hasn't missed a snap in 4 years out there in New England and in Foxborough. And then who else do they go get yesterday? Kyle Long. Let me tell you about this man. I played with him in Chicago. He's a bad man. He can play guard. He can play tackle. Hell, you can even put him at tight end if you want to. He's that athletic. Go Google him. He played tennis. He played golf. He played hockey. He played baseball. He plays everything. He took a year off to get his body right. He says he's healthy. He's ready to go. This could be dangerous. You can see this team better because now he doesn't have to worry about Shaq Barrett smacking him in the mouth and JPP smacking him in the mouth. This is scary, Nick.
Brandon, it's a great answer, but this is going to be somewhat disorienting for the audience because you are singing the praises of the team that should have won the Super Bowl last year, and I am going to sing the praises of the team that did win the Super Bowl last year. I think the winners of offseason so far have been the Bucs because they kept everybody. And I did not think they were going to be able to keep Godwin, David, and Barrett. I thought one of those three they were going to have to lose, and they kept all three of them. And they also restructured and extended Brady, so Brady now knows he's under contract through age 45 as he's always wanted to be. I don't know if it'll be good enough for them to make it back to where they were last year, but they've done everything you could have asked them to do. Yes, Brandon, tell me, or are you going to tell me they need to worry about Jameis? Is that what Brandon's about to tell me?
let's say we run back the Super Bowl, and now both of those teams are there. Now you can block it up in Kansas City because you know they got two dudes coming back from opt-out. They still got the draft. So now you got Patty Mahomes, and they blocking that man right there.
Absolutely.
Hey, this could be
agree.
scary.
And if you run it back, maybe Carl Cheffers isn't the official and every Brady incompletion is in DPI. Win-win for everyone involved. But I still think the Bucs had a good offseason, Wilds.
Yes, congratulations to the Bucs for signing everyone you have. The only thing better than signing the people you have is bringing back loved ones from far away. Kyle Van Noy, welcome back to the family, buddy. He released this video. Take a listen.
I'm back. Let's get it.
Oh, I love it so much. I love it so much.
It's definitely not a hype video. That might be cornier than Russell Wilson's video yesterday.
Much. Oh, I'm rooting for the Patriots. Moving on to Arizona now. Cardinals adding more weapons for Kyler. Signed veteran receiver A.J. Green to a one-year deal yesterday. Hey, Brandon, the Cardinals signing A.J. Green is blank.
Jenna, this could have been us. Who's us? The Giants. Man, I love my beloved New York Jets. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go to the Giants. They got Odell Beckham Jr. on one side. He's the number one. He's going to see double. He's going to see roll coverage. And you're going to see me backside. Everybody say, oh, Brandon's done. It's over. And I just had this big vision of me just going for 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, and just absolutely having a monster year because you have a dog on the other side. And then the defense, they were coming off a season where they were top 5. So when you look at the Arizona Cardinals and how they're built, Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, A.J. Green backside, how do you stop them? And you have some running backs that can be efficient and get it done. J.J. Watt comes in. This is scary and this is dangerous. And this could have been us, Odell. This could have been us, Coach McAdoo. Come on, man.
Yeah, that's also that Giant team I picked to go to the Super Bowl. Somehow not as bad as my pick of the Cowboys to go to the Super Bowl this year. Or last year. All right. The Cardinals signing A.J. Green is the blueprint. There is one very well-established blueprint in the modern NFL. If you have a franchise quarterback on a rookie contract, spin, take advantage of the window. Seattle won a Super Bowl that way. Philly won a Super Bowl that way. The Rams got to a Super Bowl that way. The Chiefs almost won 2 Super Bowls that way. The Cardinals, they're like, oh, Kyler's not due for a contract yet? Trade for Rodney Hudson. Sign J.J. Watt. Sign A.J. Green. Go spin while your quarterback is cheap. So this is the blueprint and the right blueprint. Now all they need, Wilds, is the right coach, and maybe they'll actually be doing something in Arizona.
Wow, man, you hate our old buddy Cliff sitting in his mansion. All right, my answer is Fitz ? He's a free agent now, never played with another team. Maybe he goes back to Minneapolis where he grew up. And then there's also Bucs rumors just because Tom Brady likes every kind of like great player. Maybe try to get another ring. I hope that he stays in Arizona to be a mentor, score a few touchdowns, sort of ride the wave in Arizona, try to get to the Super Bowl.
All right, guys, let's talk quarterbacks. Carson Wentz, Matt Stafford, Jared Goff all officially joined their new teams yesterday. Brandon, the quarterback on a new team you're most excited to watch, though, next season is blank.
You're showing them right there, Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford got exactly what he wants. Has a house out in Newport Beach, wants to get back out to Cali. He found a way to get it done. And this dude, I saw it up close and personal in Chicago, watching this dude twice a year. This dude is magnificent. This dude has the arm, he has the IQ, he has everything he needs to lead a team. All right, no more excuses now. You're with McVay, one of the boy wonders in the NFL. Let's see what you do now. I don't think it's even a question or even a debate on who the quarterback we should be watching this year. It's this guy right here in that offense.
It's a good answer, Brandon, but the quarterback on a new team that I'm most excited to watch is Cameron J. Newton. And I know what you're thinking, America. Cam's not on a new team. Yes, he is. For Cam's purposes, it is. It's all new wide receivers, all new tight ends. It's going to be a totally new team.
Right.
So I'm excited to see Cam on this version of the Patriots because they hope and they believe it will be nothing like last year's version of the Patriots. So my answer, Wilds, is Cam.
Solid answer. You know what show always gets me? I say, I'm not going to watch that. And then next thing I know, at 9 p.m., I'm like, the old tightrope walker. Hey, I'm tightrope walking between two buildings. I'm tightrope walking on the Grand Canyon. I'm tightrope walking in Las Vegas. You can't not watch it because one misstep, even though they have a safety harness. That's why my answer is Andy Dalton. Poor Andy Dalton, nice guy, just trying to get paid, keep his career going. Not great, but old, Fitzmagic gets there like, oh, we got Fitzmagic in Washington, we're great. Andy Dalton signs with Chicago and gets ripped. The poor guy with one incompletion or one interception is going to be destroyed, and I unfortunately am very intrigued by it. Unless he ends up in Seattle, would also be interesting. So Andy Dalton's my answer, Jenna.
You know what the problem with that show is? They do 3 hours of mini tightropes until the big one. I mean, you're watching for like 4 hours before you get to the grand finale of the big tightrope walker. Yeah. Hey, James Harden had himself a night last night. A night. Did he push himself to the top of the MVP race? Toss that around next. First things first. It is fascinating.
Hey, First Things First listeners, it's Charlotte Wilder here to tell you about my new podcast with Mark Titus called the People's Sports Podcast. It comes out every Thursday, and Mark and I take one of the big stories of the week, and then we go off on tangents you never saw coming. This might mean that we start talking about the Dodgers winning the World Series and end up wondering if Knicks fans deserve happiness. Or begin with LeBron's greatness and end up drafting our ultimate beer league softball team made up of old athletes. Whatever it is, the only rule of the show is that it has to be fun and funny, because these days we could all use as many laughs as we can get. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts and come down weird sports rabbit holes with us. We can't wait to have you. Now, back to First Things First.
Well, right now, the Lakers have the #1 defense in basketball by a mile. The gap between them and second place is bigger than the gap between second place and 10th place. And Anthony Davis isn't anchoring that defense. LeBron James is. So if it's going to be LeBron versus Harden or LeBron versus Jokic, and you've held defense against him when he was lackadaisical on that end, then this year, when he's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, it's got to work for him. So I disagreed with you and Joy last year. Last year, I thought Giannis was the MVP. This year, up to this point, there's no question it's LeBron James. And that's not because I'm an advocate for all things LeBron James, as you said it. I'm an advocate for truth and fairness in media.
Yes.
And that, my friend, is truth and fairness in media.
That was one of your stronger bonus takes. I hear Joy snickering. No. That was just a bonus take. I mean, that was a bonus take. That wasn't even one of your takes. That was a very strong bonus take. Seriously, that's like the
toy and a Happy Meal. I am snickering, though.
The chef comes out at the end of the meal and gives you free something, a little something. It's the best thing in the meal. You'd be like, wow, that was a good freebie. Yeah. Excellent work, Nick Wright.
He's right. Excellent work, Nick Wright.
Great facts.
Good job. Yeah. Well, speaking of Harden, let's talk some Brooklyn Nets. Nets dug themselves a big hole last night against the Pacers, down 16 in the first quarter, and they were without KD and Kyrie and still no Blake Griffin. So James Harden said, I got this. I used to do it all the time in Houston. And he did. 40 points, 10 rebounds, 15 assists, triple-double for James Harden. Nets get the win. They're rocking them up. What? Nobody knows that more than Sarah Kustok. Sarah, you cover the team. You watch the team day in and day out. You called the game last night. So James Harden, that guy right there, did last night propel him to the top of the MVP conversation?
Jenna, first I want to say I loved Nick's take, but I'm confused if he's selling LeBron for Defensive Player of the Year or MVP. Because he's talking a lot about...
Like Giannis.
He's talking a lot about...
Yeah, like Giannis last year, both.
Here's the deal. There's still time left in the season. So I'm not going to say that James Harden is a front runner right now in the MVP race. I still look at it, all the things LeBron is doing with Joel Embiid. I know he's hurt, but what he has been able to put together. But I'm going to give the case for James Harden so Nick can hear it a little bit more. Because for as much as he's talking about the Lakers defense being a mile ahead leading the league. Well, the Nets are about a mile and a half when it comes to where they are on the offensive end, and it is all because of this individual you're seeing. That's his 11th triple-double that James Harden put together last night. It was a 40-point triple-double. This team has won 14 of the last 15 games, and he is orchestrating so much, not just by the numbers. His numbers have been jumping off the page at you, but the little things that he has been able to do to try and help this team coalesce, I think is just a small piece of why this Nets team has continued to find success without Kevin Durant. Mentioned the streak they're on. He has played in just one game. Similar to Nick talking about Anthony Davis not being there on the defensive end, Kevin Durant impacts both sides of the ball. He's been exceptional. He's showing a lot of brilliance, and he's showing an ability to give a team what it needs. The versatility factor is a major part of James Harden, his growth in what he's shown this year.
Okay, so I agree with almost everything Sarah Kustok just said. And unlike my dear colleague Brandon Marshall, I think all wins count. All wins matter, if you will. So I'm not going to discount the Nets for beating the Pacers the way Brandon discounted the Lakers for beating, who was it? Oh, it was the
Minnesota
Pacers.
Doesn't
it was
count.
The Timberwolves, and then it was the Pacers. It was
Can I jump in on this?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Nick, I don't want to interrupt your great take, but I've heard you. You know I watch the show every morning, bright and early. I'm up with you. This stretch, you know who they beat also in this stretch? You're forgetting because they've been winning for so long. What about the Phoenix Suns?
Pretty
good.
Yeah.
What about the Clippers? Pretty good. What about Philly? Pretty good. What about your Los Angeles Lakers? Yeah,
they beat the Lakers. I know.
The teams you're bringing up. It goes so far back. It stretches so far back.
Yes.
You forget some of the stretch. You forget.
No, that's all accurate. That's all accurate. And the Nets and the Lakers, who have almost the identical record, and if we were to go over the course of the entire season, I'm sure the strength of the Nets' schedule is probably harder because the East is so much better. Oh, wait, the East has 4 good teams. But that's neither here nor there. I don't want to do that today. I'm not discounting wins. I'm not discounting Harden. And I'm glad Sarah's here because Sarah can be a firsthand witness for Wildes and Brandon because Sarah's been talking basketball with me for years. And Sarah knows for years I defended James Harden when others attacked him. When others wanted to discount what a brilliant offensive player he was, I for years defended him as one of the greatest isolation scorers, if not the greatest, in the history of the league. All of that can be true, and it can also be true that unless we are going to Men in Black neuralize ourselves about what happened in Houston, that James Harden is starting in such a massive deficit for an award called Most Valuable Player that it's a hole you can't dig yourself out of. And so that it's not about last night he was almost perfect as an offensive basketball player. But Brandon, it's not fair to everyone involved to just pretend what happened in Houston didn't happen because it was this season. It wasn't the off season.
And
it wasn't last year. It was this season.
Fair. It's about basketball, and it's not fair just to take the MVP trophy and dangle it out there like it's a charity trophy. It's not a charity trophy. It goes to who is the most valuable player for their team, and you got to watch what he's doing. Here's the deal. Mr. Producer, people on this show, every time we talk about the Nets, can we please bring on Sarah? Because Sarah has a way with words. I tried to articulate myself with this on this topic a month and a half ago, and I couldn't do it. I spent the last 13 years, 15 years talking about football, playing football. So basketball just doesn't roll off the tongue. But I was the first one in America saying, hey, we're talking about MVP. We're talking about greatness. Y'all need to watch James Harden. I was the first one saying that, and everybody laughed at me. So, Sarah, can you please come on this show? Because I don't even know what else I can say after this. Because the reality is this. If we want to look at all these guys, Jokic, James Harden, Giannis, and LeBron James, right now, it's like it's a toss-up. They're all playing really good ball. But the precedent throughout NBA history is that the MVP comes from the top 3 seeds. What do you have? You have Harden in the East trending upwards. They started off, they were about 5, 6, now they're 2. Now they're about to take over the 1 seed. LeBron James is going in the opposite direction. LeBron James may go into the playoffs at the number 5 seed. So if the precedent is already set, and the precedent is that the MVP comes from a top 2 seed outside of Westbrook in 2016, 2017, then he's pretty much eliminated. Embiid is pretty much eliminated because we don't know if he's going to come back in time to continue on this pace. So I say that to say this. That was before the All-Star break. Let's look at the last 6 games. This is where Harden separates himself. He's averaging a triple-double. He could potentially end the season in the second half of the season, post-NBA break, All-Star break, averaging a triple-double. This is insane. He's playing sensational. And Sarah, thank you so much for being able to come on this show and tell Nick Wright the things that I've been trying to say for a month and a half now. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Brandon, we've been hearing you. We've been hearing you.
Hey, Sarah, question for you. Do you think that when all the Nets' big 3 are healthy and they all have to share the ball a little bit more, that this will actually hurt James Harden's MVP chances? Like, obviously, he had a big game last night. Like, all right, I'm the main scorer. But once KD's back on the floor, once Kyrie's back on the floor, maybe those numbers come down. You don't start averaging a triple-double. Do you think that will adversely affect his MVP chances?
It's a great question, Kevin, and I think we often talk about this when there is multiple stars on a team. But to me, that is the beauty and the brilliance of how we've seen James Harden play, how he's able to impact the game more than just what he does with the numbers. And a lot of it comes from that facilitation, comes from the rebounds, and comes from the way that he understands how to get the ball where it needs to go to on the floor. I do want to address, though, and Nick, I get it, your point about the way things ended in Houston and rather unseemly of how that breakup occurred, the timing of the season. But is that timing on James Harden? He still came back and played 8 games, of which he was averaging close to 25 points per game, 10.5 assists, 5 rebounds. He had made it clear that that was a place where he felt like he had given everything he could throughout the course. And again, you were one of his biggest defenders throughout the course of his runs in Houston when they went toe-to-toe in many cases with that Golden State Warriors team that no one thought that they could touch. He had made it clear that he was ready to be somewhere else. And we've seen players at other occasions try and get to a different destination, Anthony Davis for one of those. And I think because of the time of the season, that's where it is at the forefront of our mind. The energy may not have been there, the attention to what he was doing on the floor, and obviously things off the court. But the numbers, he is still putting up the type of numbers that in many cases you would expect out of a star.
Except here's the problem with that. So 2 things. One is, the problem with that is we all watched those games, and we all know that James Harden, for the final half dozen games in particular in Houston, was mailing it in. And that, so it's not that you necessarily hold the timing against him, but you absolutely hold the effort against him. And when it comes to MVP, the whole, wait, where was he for his teammates before the season started? Oh, that's right. He was at a strip club with Lil Baby giving him 100 racks, and his team's got to deal with that. And Boogie's upset, and John Wall's upset. That all matters for the MVP conversation, which is why, to Brandon's point, it has always mattered to be a winning team. And Brandon is assigning the Lakers the 5 seed. Brandon, I will say this right now on the air, mark the tape. If the Lakers are the 5 seed in the West, I won't be arguing for LeBron to be MVP. But they're not going to be the 5 seed. They're more likely to be the 1 seed because of fraudulent Utah than they are the 5 seed. And the last point is to answer Wild's question. Wild, you asked a very nuanced... Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Brandon. No, go ahead. Then I'll answer Wild's thing. Go ahead, Brandon.
I tried to debunk this because I knew you was going to go here. I said it soon as we came back from All-Star break. Do not fall victim to what the Lakers are going to do in March. Who they're playing, the Golden State Warriors, the Timberwolves, and Charlotte, Atlanta. That's right. That's exactly.
That's fine. And
Charlotte,
I'm saying
Atlanta,
I don't think they'll be the 5 seed at the end of the year. Yeah, I know the Lakers have a lot of Eastern Conference teams on the schedule, which is a lot easier. But to Wild's question was this: is it going to be hard for James Harden to win the MVP when Kevin Durant comes back? And will it be hard for a guy who's not the best player on his own team to be called the best player in basketball? Yes, Wilds, it will be hard when he is clearly the second best guy on his own basketball team to win the award for the best player in the entire league.
He's going to make history.
Another
award for him.
It will be hard, Jenna. I'm just a little unprecedented.
Listen, that's the other big thing. We've barely even seen these three play together. KD, Harden, and Kyrie. Let's see what they can do together and how successful that is. Sarah Kustok, thank you so much. As always, we appreciate it. Got to take a turn.
Appreciate
Talk some football. Back to Russ. Seahawks said no to the Bears' Godfather offer. So does that mean they are committed to making it work in Seattle? Discuss next. First things first.
Tell Grady he did great last night on the call.
The under-23 men's national soccer team begin their fight for a spot in the Summer Olympics as they take on Costa Rica. CONCACAF men's Olympic qualifying today, 5:30 Eastern on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. I'm all in on all things soccer. Now that I just finished Ted Lasso, I'm just going to say it. Moving on. Back here with Mike Vick talking Russell Wilson. The oh-so-desperate for a quarterback Chicago Bears made a Godfather offer to the Seahawks for Russ. Here it is, 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick, 2 starters, and a deep dish pizza. And the Seahawks reportedly mulled it over. Until, as we're hearing, Pete Carroll came in, said, no thanks, and he nixed the deal. Fox Bet Sportsbook, though, has the Seahawks as overwhelming minus 5,000 favorites to have Russ under center week 1. We got Mike Vick with us now. Mike, was the Seahawks turning down that Bears offer actually a sign of commitment, do you think, to Russell Wilson?
Yeah, I think commitment for the next year. But when you turn down an offer like that, you're really telling your guy, look, this is, our commitment to you. We believe in you. We trust you. We want you. Because this was a blockbuster deal. And, when you get 3 first-rounders, a third-rounder, you're getting 2 starters, you can do a lot with your football team with that. And if they was thinking long-term, if they was thinking about the future and moving on without Russell Wilson, this was their opportunity to do so. And I guarantee you, Russell knew about this deal. Russell knew that he had a chance to go to Chicago and play with a defense and get everything that he was looking for. Who knows what that is? They only know internally, but the opportunity was there. But for the Seattle Seahawks to turn that offer down shows Russell Wilson that we can move forward. And I don't know what happened in between, how it even got to this point. I felt over the last couple months this had gotten out of hand to a certain degree, but I understand the business aspect of it on both sides. And I understand Russell's frustrations to win. But last year wasn't as bad as you think when you look back at the season. And as Russell go back and look at it, I don't think it was bad as he thought. Maybe a couple plug-ins and pieces was missing here and there, but that's football. Only one team can win the championship. So, while, all the conversation about the trade talk came up and what have you.
Why are you laughing at, Brandon?
One more year.
Why?
One more year for Russ. If
I'm
it don't
laughing
work
at
out.
Mike because he said it wasn't that bad. Mike, your man threw a couple interceptions in a couple of games, and then all of a sudden they went from being the number 1 team in the NFL on first down throwing it to last. They went from throwing it X amount, like 30-something times, to now saying we're going to run it every single play. So, I got to push back there. And I think that's the game plans got stale. They got conservative. Pete Carroll start freaking out. That's what happened. And I think that's why we're here now. I don't think that this is them making a commitment to him. I think this is them saying we need to buy more time to figure this out. And Mike, what we're seeing right now is the power of the player, specifically the quarterback position. Now you got Russell Wilson coming in saying this is unacceptable Move me if you're not going to do this. Now, I ask you this question. When you were in Atlanta, you were the face of the NFL. We're talking about the Mike Vick experience. All of us was wearing your shoes. Did you ever go to management and said, look, right now, if you don't give me this tight end, this wide receiver, this tackle, like, we're going to be talking about trade. We're going to be talking about you guys trying to move on from me. Or the next question I would say is, if you went to them in that moment, what they would have done? Tell me that, because you're Mike Vick, and now we didn't use that power back then. Now these quarterbacks are.
Yeah, I'll say this. Going into my 7th season, I looked around the locker room, and I looked at our team, and I seen some things that could have been done better. I seen some decisions that could have been made that could have changed the dynamic of our team. And yes, I went to Mr. Blank, I went to Rich McKay, and I voiced my opinion. And they, opened the doors. They was lending the open ear. And I respected that. It never got to that point because I still had to look at myself and the things that I didn't do right. So, when you're looking at your team and you point the finger at certain guys, his finger's being pointed back at you, whether it's publicly or behind closed doors. So, you got to walk a fine line when you're at the quarterback position. Now, look, I understand Russ is the leader of this football team. He's led them to a championship. They've had some great years, and he's entitled to voice his opinion on all levels. But at the same time, you got to understand the dynamic of how a team comes together. And it starts with the quarterback. It starts with what you get paid. And then when you start to look around at the locker room and look around at your team and see pieces are missing, you have to understand that the salary cap sometimes, because you're taking a boatload of that money, can't compensate everybody. So you gotta kind of take this thing as it goes and understand the business aspect of it.
And I would argue that Seattle has not acted this offseason in free agency and in the trade market like they are all that worried about Russell's demands. What were his demands? I want better offensive line play, better offensive linemen, and defensive playmakers. They signed no offensive linemen in free agency. Now, they did trade yesterday for Gabe Jackson. Credit to them for that. And on the defensive side of the ball, not only have they not added any high-level playmakers, Shaq Griffin, who was arguably their best corner, is gone. He signed elsewhere in free agency. So, wild to me, the Seahawks are showing commitment by not trading. If they would have made this trade with the Bears, here's what I think Pete Carroll realized. If we all of a sudden, so we're going to get 2 of the Bears' defensive starters, 3 of the Bears' draft picks, 4 of the Bears' draft picks, and not have a quarterback, that'll just make us the Bears. We don't want to be the Bears. Being the Bears isn't fun. It hasn't been fun for 70 years to be the Bears. 1 year it was fun.
No, it was fun in 2012. Don't be disrespectful.
Oh, my bad.
I played on those Bears.
Apologies. It was very fun. It was fun when Brandon and Jay Cutler were there, and it was fun the year they went to the Super Bowl with Rex Grossman, and in the mid-'80s it was awesome. But we certainly don't want to be the Bears of the last few years. But, so it feels like they understand the value of Russell Wilson, but they don't seem to want to give in to his demands. They haven't made any big splashes in free agency where you're like, oh, they're doing what he wants. I just feel like they're saying, Russ might be a little unhappy. We don't think he is going to go more public than he has, and we'll deal with the unhappiness. That seems to be their approach thus far.
Yeah, well, if they loved Russell Wilson, why don't they just say it? Why don't you call up Dan Patrick? Why don't you come on this show? Why don't you send out a tweet? Do anything. Well, the only thing that we've heard from Seattle is we're not trading Russell Wilson at this time. Oh, okay. Well, Bruce Arians was down in Tampa saying your ASS isn't going anywhere, and next thing you know, they signed everybody. And Jerry Jones is like, well, trading Dak, that'd be like trading my own son. And then they signed Dak. So they haven't said anything. Pete Carroll's not gun shy of the media. The only thing that they're putting out publicly, Brandon, is this. We want more from you, Bears. It's out there now. We want more from you. Right. And they're squeezing them, like, hey, do our job for us, Chicago media. And Chicago media had a lovely barbecue, and they put Ryan Pace on it, and they filleted the poor guy. They called for his job, wanted to fire him. They're like, we're renouncing our fandom. So now the pressure is on the Bears. They know that they're facing like their job loss and they want to hire a better franchise. I think this is just Seattle squeezing Chicago publicly.
And you miss one, Wilds. Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, his statements after the season, then all of a sudden, what did the Packers stand up and say? This is our guy. So this is telling us a lot, Mike. Like, this is a guy, we're talking about through 9 years, no one has won more games. We're talking about Elway. We're talking about Dan Marino. We're talking about you. We're talking about, you can go Patrick Mahomes in his first 4 years. These guys, Brady, Breeze, you go on and on and on. This dude does nothing but win. So this is Pete Carroll trying to buy more time and figure out. But the reality is this as well. This is an unfamiliar territory for them. They had trade discussions before on Russell Wilson. You go back, and a lot of this didn't get out. But back in the day, they had to make a decision. Do we pay him this 30-something million, 35 or whatever it was back then, or do we keep our defense? He had to make that decision. Russ wanted everything. And what ended up happening, they dismantled the Legion of Boom, and they went with Russell Wilson. They truly believe there's a certain way they want to play ball. And Russell Wilson is saying, we did that for 9 years. We got one out of it, but I'm a quarterback that can bring 3 to 4 here, and that's what I want to do. And to do that, we have to evolve. So they don't want to evolve. So for me, this is the continuation of this situation. And what's going to happen is if it doesn't get done in the next week or two, Russell Wilson will be on the move.
Yeah, nothing's going to happen. Look, the Seattle Seahawks organization, they're smart. They know in order to win this season, they need Russell Wilson. And they got to think back into how long it took for them to find the right guy. Since Hasselbeck, since Warren Moon, since Dave Craig, back in the day.
Nice.
Look, they got to cherish what they have, and they got to, make this season work regardless. We'll think about what is going to happen in 2022 when we get there. But as of this season, Russell Wilson will stay with the Seahawks. They're committed.
I don't know. Now that offer was leaked, I wouldn't be surprised if another team maybe picks up the phone and calls Seattle now that they know what they're looking for. Got to head up to New England now. Bill Belichick has gone on an unprecedented spending spree in free agency. But what does it mean? That is next. First things first.
Means we're going to be awesome. Spoiler alert.
Back here talking Patriots now. And the award for biggest spender during free agency goes to Bill Belichick, the New England Patriots.
Oh.
Dollar Bill handed out a lot. You like what I did? It's comedy. Dollar Bill handed out a lot of money this offseason to a lot of guys. The goal, retool the roster. The method, kind of historic. Patriots just the 6th team ever to hand out over $100 million in guaranteed money during free agency. But hang on, last 5 times to spend this big, never even won a playoff game that year. With that, we welcome in our guy, our big spender, Coach Mangini. But hang on, Coach Wilds, I'm going to start with you because you're our resident Patriots fan. Are Patriots fans crazy to think the spending will automatically equal success?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jen. I was just vomiting in my mouth when I saw that graphic. Yeah, the Patriots next year are going to be like the 2 Jets teams on there and the Dolphins that didn't make the playoffs. So let me get this straight, Coach. The Patriots didn't have enough weapons last year and had a bunch of guys opt out, and that was the issue of why they weren't successful, and everybody agreed with it. So Bill Belichick said, yeah, that's the plan. And now we get a ton of guys, new guys, to get Cam weapons and get Trent Brown back and get Kyle Van Noy back and get 2 tight ends, which we've had a ton of success in 2 tight end system. And the rationale from the Patriots haters is this. Too many guys. They're too successful. It's like the dream team. What are we going to do? Got to add Christian Laettner. You got to switch it up a little bit. Can't have too many guys. It's like the Nets. Do we even want James Harden? I don't know. It's going to be too much. So I reject this wholeheartedly, Coach, as a desperate attempt from people trying to tamp down the rising phoenix of the New England Patriots dynasty.
I absolutely love your enthusiasm. And although they had an influx of talent, you comparing it to the dream team, I think is a little bit of a stretch. That's the biggest stretch that I've heard in a long time. This feels a little bit like watching the World Series of poker. The guy loses a bunch of chips, and then the next hand he's trying to get his chips back, so he goes all in. And the reality is that $100 million is going to be that $100 million is going to be dependent on the $5 million that they paid Cam Newton. It's how well the quarterback can improve in the second year in the system is going to be more influential on their success than anything else. And when you look at Bill's track record, there's one winning season without Tom Brady in 7 years. So this is a really important year for him in terms of a legacy play. And look, when you spend $100 million of the owner's money, to whom much is given, much is expected. And just like you have a high expectations as a Patriots fan, they're going to have high expectations as an organization too. But it comes down to $5 million, invested in Cam Newton.
Coach, let me ask it this way to you, though, because I think some of the Patriot excitement, some of Wild's stuff is the kind part of my heart says adorable. The other part of my heart says nauseating. It's probably somewhere in the middle. But like this idea of like, hey, they were great with 2 tight ends. Yeah, when the tight ends were Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez, one of the greatest, maybe the greatest to ever do it, and a guy who was a dynamic player in this league, even though we don't talk about him as such obviously anymore. So I don't see that. My question to you is this, though. If you were in charge of the Patriots this offseason, would you have done something similar? Would you have brought back Cam, knowing the landscape and knowing what the alternatives are? And would you have said, listen, even if we're overpaying a bit, we have to upgrade the weapons, the skill positions, or how would you have done things if you were the one pulling the levers of free agency this year?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with what they did. The fact that they brought Cam back, to me, is not a bad decision at all. And they got him for $5 million. They got him for $5 million less than Ryan Fitzpatrick. Okay, and that gives you a lot of options to go do other things. And the way that the cap is structured this year, where it's a down year, it's going to be up in future years. So these contracts in future years are going to be much smaller than they look now because of the expansion of the cap. So I think from a long-term planning perspective, I don't have an issue with that. It's just whether or not turning over, with the draft, 20% of the team is going to give you the pop that you want. There is a Patriot way, and the Patriot way is reinforced in the locker room. And when so many new guys are fused to a locker room, you're not getting that same pop. And there's a learning curve with free agents.
There you go. You said it. The Patriot way. I'm not going to get cute with my answer, Coach. She asked, will they have success after the spending spree? Yes or no? I'm going to say yes. Why? Because of the Patriot way. What is the Patriot way? I'm thinking about this thing, Wild. I'm sitting back and I'm like, you know what? I've been crushing Bill Belichick, the general manager. I was crushing him last year. He didn't set up my guy Cam Newton for success. But then I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, the Patriot way, what is the Patriot way? He has been telling us. He sat Tom Brady in the front, and he said, I'm going to hold you accountable like I hold everybody else accountable. If you throw a pick in practice, I'm going to call you out in front of the whole team. I don't care how many Super Bowls you won. I don't care how many MVPs. I don't care if you're the GOAT. If you jump off sides, if you make a mistake pre-snap, you go run a lap just like everybody else. And so what is that saying to you? He doesn't think that Tom Brady was bigger than the team. That's why he made the moves he made. So now when you look at the Patriot way, what is the Patriot way? Because I always ask these questions when guys come into our locker room and they're coming from the Patriots organization. Like, how is Bill? What are some of the things that he say? What makes him different? And this is what they say. This is the number one thing. Bill will come in a meeting and say, they're going to hurt themselves. Let them beat themselves. Because the Patriot way is 12 personnel. You said it, Nick. We're going to go back to Daniel Graham and Ben Watson playing 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. And then they came to Aaron Hernandez and Gronkowski. And now what did they do? They doubled down on the Patriot way, and they brought in Hunter Henry and then also Jonnu Smith. So when you think about the Patriot way, he is setting himself up for success again right now. Don't beat ourselves. Let them beat themselves. We're going to play good defense. We're not going to hurt ourselves on special teams. So we're going to win the hitting yardage battle. That's the Patriot way, Nick. And I'm telling you right now, the answer is yes. And I'm getting a hit of this right now. This team is going to be right back where they need to be.
Coach, you're shaking your head. Why are you shaking your head?
Well,
let me hear it.
Because the Patriot way isn't a personnel group. It's a lifestyle. And here's the thing is when you have Tom Brady sitting in the front row and you call him out and he accepts the coaching as the greatest player of all time with the incredible amount of success he has, it's such a powerful tool to everybody else on the team. But when you don't have Tom Brady sitting there and you're calling guys out, it's not for everybody. It didn't work out for some other high-priced free agents that went in there. Adelius Thomas
but now
had,
you
had
have
some
Cam
issues.
Newton.
I
know
get
Cam
you,
Newton is not Tom Brady. I know Cam Newton is not Tom Brady, but we're talking about a guy who was an MVP in this league, a guy who led his team to the Super Bowl. Was it 2015, I believe? Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. So now he's sitting in the front, and you can now talk to him the same way. We saw him on national television, prime time, get benched. And what did he do? He sat there and took it. So when you talk about having someone, the superstar athlete on your team, being able to take that, you can replace that with Cam Newton. So I'll push back on that, Nick.
Well, hold on, Brandon. Just one thing. You know how it works in the locker room. It's don't tell me you love me. It's show me you love me. And who do you love? You love who you pay. And when you pay a dude $5 million, you don't have, whether you've been MVP or non-MVP, you don't have the same pop in the locker room when your salary is less than, the slot corner.
Well, I do, Coach. Hold on. Let's just stay there just for a second. I know we're a little late here, but I do think no matter what they pay Cam, he has more cachet in a locker room of NFL players than Ryan Fitzpatrick would. Sorry, Fitzy. Than Andy Dalton would, who's making $10 million this year. And I do think when you're talking about the Patriot way and about how you're going to have all these new guys plus the draft picks, having a guy who I still think holds a massive amount of credibility amongst his peers because of who he is and maybe more so who he has been in the past, if he is going to take that, I do think that's part of his value. Like, don't you think that's part of the reason that they're willing to go another year with Cam, even though he struggled last year, was because he holds more cachet than just a typical $5 million quarterback because he's Cam Newton?
Yeah, he definitely has cachet based off the things that he's done. But when you look at last season in terms of the passing game, his numbers aren't going to impress very many people. What did he throw? 12 picks? Should he be better this year than he was last year with a year into the system? Yeah, he should. But if he's not playing at a high level, guys forget quickly what you've done in the past. Guys don't care. They came there to win. They want to win. And if you're not helping them win, it doesn't matter what your resume says. It matters what you're doing right now.
Eric Mangini, thank you so much. Love having you on. Take a break, talk some Packers now. Does Aaron Rodgers need Green Bay to sign a big-name receiver to get back to the Super Bowl? Have that for you next. First things first.
Wilds, if only there was another football team.
Back here, first things first, talking the gift that is NFL free agency. Hey, Brandon knows what it's like to be a free agent receiver looking for a new home. If you were still looking, Brandon, former NFL GM Scott Pioli's got some advice for you. He said, quote, if I'm a free agent wide receiver and I'm frustrated with the market, I would run to Green Bay and to Aaron Rodgers. Well, there's still a lot of big names out there at the receiver position that could take Pioli's advice, so let's dive into that. Mike Vick back with us now. There's just a bevy of names on the screen. Mike, we know Rodgers could use a couple more weapons. You expect them to land one of these big-time free agent wide receivers?
I mean, I do. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to be real particular about the guy that I select. And when I look at that list, I think AB would probably be the best fit. And when I think about the Packers receivers and what they did last year, obviously you need a compliment to Devontae Adams. And, I think Scanlon and Lazard, they did enough, but there were some drops at some inopportune times, at some crucial moments throughout the season. but yet those guys were fairly consistent. And the Green Bay Packers was just a half away from going to the Super Bowl, so I don't know how much more they need at the receiver position. But I will say this, as a quarterback, when I was able to look on the outside and see Deshaun Jackson and see Jeremy Maclin on the outside, the confidence was there. I felt like we couldn't miss. I felt like I can go into any game and I could flourish as a quarterback. And I felt like those guys can have success against any defensive backfield in the National Football League. So, it's always a comfort level to have two good receivers. And I think we're about to enter an era where two dominant, prominent receivers are going to be very important moving forward. So, yeah, if I'm the Green Bay Packers, I'm looking for a guy to complement Davante Adams.
Well, I've always embraced that. I grew up playing the running back position. And in 8th grade, I moved to Augusta, Georgia. And they had 6 running backs in front of me. They didn't know who I was. So we go to our jamboree, spring game. I get a toss to the right because I'm a running back. I've been a running back my entire life. They throw me a pitch. I break like 3 tackles, make a spin, look like Barry Sanders, and then I got 20 yards. It's like, oh, this kid could potentially play. Maybe he can move up on a depth chart. And then they did the same play, back to back, 20 yards, same, identical, broke a few tackles, spin move. And at the end, I fumbled the ball. And then the coach said, boy, you're going to play wide receiver here. And since then, my dad and my uncle said, all right, this is what you need to be a wide receiver. My uncle came to me and said, son, you're only as great as the guy on the other end, because you can be phenomenal, but if they're double teaming you, if they're triple teaming you, if they're rolling coverage to you, you need somebody on the other side. So Mike Vick, you are right. You need that guy. I wouldn't even say like the era is about to begin. I think it already started. I was a guy that embraced Eddie Royal, embraced Alshon Jeffrey, embraced Martellus Bennett, embraced Eric Decker. They did this. This is the DNA of the Packers. You go back to Greg Jennings. You go back to Donald Driver. You go back to Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb. Those guys played together. James Jones. They were all on the same team. That is who we know when it comes to Brett Favre, the end of the Brett Favre era, and then now inserting Aaron Rodgers. Now when you look at it, you got one guy. Like, who's the other guy on the other side? So when you think about how he plays, Nick, he's a dude that plays almost like backyard football. So the dudes on that list that fit, take Juju off. Take T.Y. Hilton off. You know who I like? I like Galladay, but he's probably too expensive. I love A.B. A.B. would be perfect. You need an X wide receiver. You need somebody who can go backside and they can win on a slant route, can win on a 9-yard stop route, can adjust to the ball back shoulder, can beat you over, can get in the red zone and be savvy. That's that guy. Another guy that they can potentially look at, and we've been talking about him, you brought it up a couple weeks ago, and that is Odell Beckham Jr. So when you think about who Aaron Rodgers is, who Green Bay is, they need an AB, they need a Galladay too expensive, or go get Odell Beckham Jr. and you might find yourself back in the Super Bowl.
And by the way, Odell is not expensive at all on his current contract. It's 3 years left, $42 million left, because the signing bonus has been paid. Hell, it was paid by the Giants, not even the Browns. So it's $14 million a year for Odell. Brandon, I complimented you off the air the other day on something, however, that I think possibly you failed me on today. No, well, not necessarily. I said you do as well as anyone on television, better than I do, better than almost anybody does, of answering the question that is asked. And the question that was asked was not, should the Packers go after a big-time free agent? It was, do you expect them to go after a big-time free agent? So I agree with you and I agree with Mike. They should. But all of Packers history tells me they won't. Because you know what Driver and Jordy and Randall and Greg Jennings and Davante Adams all have in common? They drafted them. Nary a big-time free agent signing in the mix. There's a reason we're all like, man, remember when you got Charles Woodson? Because that was 12 years ago, and that was one of 2 big notable free agent moves they've made since then. They also signed Zadarius Smith a couple years ago, and that actually was a really good one. Before that, they invented free agency by signing Reggie White, won a Super Bowl, and then sat out of it for a decade. And I looked this morning. Like, okay, let's go through every team. Our guy Dusty sent me a great link that has every single team's free agent moves and a grade. NFL.com gave him a grade. You know what grade they gave the Packers? Incomplete. Because as of this morning, all they had done was re-sign Aaron Jones. They had done nothing. Yeah. They had brought in nobody. So I just don't know, Mike, even if we all agree they should, that they will. So do I expect them to? No, I don't expect them to. If I were running things, would I? Absolutely. But I don't know that I expect them to, Mike.
You know, based on the Green Bay Packers history, you know, I'm surprised we're even having this conversation. And right now I feel like it's wishful thinking because every year in free agency, they have a chance to make a splash and a moment that they can take advantage of, and they never do. So right now, I'm throwing it out there, just like Brandon said, and we both agree. AB will be the guy to fill that void at the X position and complement Davante Adams. I don't expect this to happen. If it do, I will be surprised, but I'll be very happy for the Green Bay Packers. But they need somebody opposite of Davante Adams ASAP.
Ooh. But Nick makes a good point. They still probably won't at the end of all of it. Hey, the theme of this NFL offseason quarterback movement. Which QB will have the biggest impact next season with their new team? Find out next. Mike, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Brandon, my move is to ignore the question.
The under-23 men's national soccer team begin their fight for a spot in the Summer Olympics as they take on Costa Rica. CONCACAF men's Olympic qualifying today, 5:30 Eastern on FS1 and Fox Sports app. Good stuff. Time now for stories to start your morning, sponsored by Ram Trucks. Built to serve. We're talking Russell Wilson here. So we learned yesterday what the Bears offered Seattle for Russ. It was quite a list. 3 first-round picks, 1 third-round pick, 2 starters, a Chicago Bears sweatshirt. I mean, it's like the Godfather offer that'll probably take to get one of these superstar quarterbacks that's available. Remember, Seattle came back with a hard no, saying Russ isn't available at this time, with Pete Carroll reportedly the one who said, no thank you, Chicago. Brandon, what was your reaction to the Seahawks turning down that offer from Chicago for Russ?
My reaction was that Pete Carroll and the Seahawks have finally realized that they have one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. That was my reaction. He has more wins through the first 9 years than any quarterback. We're talking about Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees. You go on and on and on. Aaron Rodgers. Who else do you want to throw out there? Like, this dude is next level. That's them finally realizing, look, we need to buy more time to figure this out. The greats want to be protected, and they haven't protected him. They drafted 1 offensive lineman in the first round since he's been a Seattle Seahawk. It's time for them to evolve and go to another level. We understand that the blueprint worked before. We get it. You know, play good defense. You had the Legion of Boom. You had those guys over there. And then also run the ball. We had Marshawn Lynch. And then when we're in a bind, go do it, Russ. Go win it for us. And that's why he's one of the greatest comeback quarterbacks ever, or the greatest when you look at the numbers. But at the end of the day, Nick, if they don't figure this out and figure it out fast, this is going to be a sad day, and I said it before, in Seattle sports history. And that's comparing that to Ken Griffey Jr. leaving and the Seattle Supersonics. Here's what I know. I know he loves Seattle. I know he loves that community. He's done a lot for that community. He talks about it every day. You see him out in the hospitals every single week, and he's done that 9 years in a row. He loves it. But here's the biggest thing. He's obsessed with winning. He's obsessed with studying. He's obsessed with learning. This is who he is. And if they don't figure it out, man, it's just going to be a sad moment. And Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks are finally realizing, you know, maybe we should change our ways.
Well, if they are realizing it, they're not showing it with their actions as far as player acquisition. They signed no offensive lineman in free agency. They did trade for Gabe Jackson. They didn't add any super impact, high impact defensive players. Instead, they let Shaquille Griffin leave in free agency. And so, Wilds, I think this offseason is going to be a very interesting test case because there was some, and Brandon's talked about this over the last, call it 18 months, of NFL stars trying to mimic, to a degree, the habits of NBA stars, which is we're in charge. You know who runs an NBA team? The best player. But what we're seeing is that might not quite be the case. If you're Jamal Adams, if you're Jalen Ramsey, you can force your way out of town because a team will give up a couple first-round picks for you, and you are not valuable enough to be a total distraction to the locker room if someone's willing to pay a couple first-round picks. But if you're a star quarterback, can you force your way out of town? Call it passive-aggressively. Can you, as a star quarterback, even force your team to do something you want? Aaron Rodgers has been pretty clear he'd like some weapons. You know what the Packers have done? Nothing. Russell Wilson, pretty clear. Hey, I'm not saying I want to leave, but here's 4 teams I would go to. You know what Seattle's done? Nothing. Now, Deshaun Watson went nuclear, nuclear is the wrong word. Deshaun Watson made it very clear he does not want to play for them. He's gone further than these other guys, and he might actually get out. But he hasn't gotten out yet. And so I'm really curious to see how much power does Russ have? Because up to this point, while they haven't traded him, they also haven't acquiesced seemingly to any of his demands. The Packers have done nothing for Aaron Rodgers. He was worried about losing Corey Linsley. They lost him. Now they brought back Aaron Jones, but that wasn't shocking. So I'm just curious to see how this plays out because I'm not sure if these guys have the leverage that maybe we thought they did a month ago.
Yeah, but so Brandon, I hear you. I think Russ has the leverage. He has a lever right here that he could pull at any point and just say, trade me. Boop, tweeted it or Instagrammed it. Trade me. I don't want to be here. That's it. That's the James Harden lever. He pulled it and and then they moved him. So to me, it feels like Russ is keeping that in his back pocket, waiting for something. But Seattle they haven't realized anything. Besides the moves that Nick said they haven't made, it's not hard to get out there like Jerry Jones and have a press conference say, I absolutely love Russ. We're not trading him. Call up Dan Patrick, say, we're not trading him. We're going to make it work. We screwed up or I'm dedicated to making this work. They didn't do that. They said, we're not trading him at this time. What?
At this time.
What are you talking about? Like that means they're going to trade him, Brandon.
Look, at the end of the day, Russ is not trying to be classy. He's a classy guy. That's who he is. He's setting the table and laying out the blueprint. This is how you conduct yourself. But now you're putting him in the corner where this dude, like I said, he's obsessed with winning. And he's going to make sure that he protects that. He wants to, every day when he walks in the facility, he wants to feel full. He wants to feel whole. That is Russell Wilson. That's a lot of those guys. And then, Nick, I push back on you. Yeah, you're talking about Aaron Rodgers, but that's something deep-rooted in the Green Bay Packers DNA. Why aren't they going out there and getting weapons and making big splashes in free agency? Because you look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady goes to Tampa. He brings a whole damn bus of people. He bring AB. He bring Gronkowski. He bring his trainer, Alex. You go to Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, what does he do? He walks in the building, he runs the whole show. I remember asking Elvis Dumerville when I left Denver and then Tom came in. I said, tell me about Tom. He said he runs the whole deal. And he takes the script out of the coach's hand, and if he doesn't like it, he tells the coach, we're starting practice over. These quarterbacks have power. Jay Cutler, why did I get a chance to go to Chicago? Jay Cutler said, I need an X. They said, okay, what X do you want? He said, I want Brandon Marshall, the guy I had in Denver. These quarterbacks have power, and now Russell Wilson, for the very first time, is using his power.
Well, then I've got a question for you. I want to stay here because you said he's obsessed with winning, and obviously you know Russ very well. And I'm not doubting his dedication to winning. But I do wonder if right now this moment is more about winning than it is about the word you just used, power. Because let me ask you this question. Yep. Let's say the Seahawks said yes to this trade. The Bears are giving up 3 first-round picks, 2 defensive starters, and Russell Wilson is now the quarterback for the Bears. Is he in a better position to win than he is right now? With the Bears, you have Allen Robinson, but in Seattle, you have DK Metcalf. But is he in a better position to win?
No. I'm gonna tell. Let me answer your question. He needs to use his power the same way James Harden used his power. You know what James Harden said? He said, "I want to go to the Brooklyn Nets." That was his number one destination. And then we sat there and said, "There's no way it's going to happen. They got to give up Kyrie." This is facts. James Harden told the Houston Rockets. He told the Brooklyn Nets, If Kyrie is in it, then there's no deal, there's no trade. I'm going here, this is where I want to be. So if I'm Russell Wilson, I'm using the same thing. No, this is what it is. Use your power, because the only thing that's going to happen is going to continue to get messy. The offensive linemen are already upset with them. You done called us out, bro. You said we're not protecting you. How you feel? How you think Dwayne Brown feel? So it's going to get messy.
But I guess what I'm saying is that the places he mentioned, like if Oakland traded for him, if Chicago, those are his list. You are not in a better position to win than you are with Seattle right now.
I agree.
Like, because you're not going to trade him for nothing.
Right, you're right. But the business is changing now, and guys are understanding the leverage they have. They understand their power, and he needs to lean into that. That's what he needs to do, Jenna. Like, this dude has the ability to do that.
Hey, Brandon, real quick.
While you about to jump in there?
Something interesting. Yeah, do you think that Russ has burnt the bridge with his offensive line so that he can't go back?
No, there's only one offensive lineman he have, and that's Dwayne Brown. That's the only guy he has to answer to, is that Vick left tackle. Everybody else, I literally had a guy on that offensive line call me and say, "Brandon, can I get a job?" And then a week later, this dude was starting on Monday Night Football. So he has one offensive lineman he needs to answer to.
Well, Russ is ready wherever he ends.